Jack Martin, live for us there in Seoul. Sourabh Gupta is with the Institute for China-America Studies, where he's a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist. Give me your sense of this two-day visit. What are some of the things that jump out at you?
Three things jump out at me, frankly. The focus has been on the denuclearization-related issue, but I think there's a domestic dimension to this, a bilateral dimension to it, and an international dimension. Kim Jong Un, at the recent the Workers' Party plenary, was elevated, his position was elevated, and they have a new leadership in North Korea. So this is President Xi giving his not just reassurance, but also giving his stamp of approval on Kim's elevation domestically. Bilaterally, this is the 70th year of the establishment of ties. So it's a celebration of that relationship. And of course, from an international perspective, we have the Korean Peninsula issue, and this is about China providing backstop to the North Koreans to be brave to go and to pursue denuclearization. You
mentioned that stamp of approval. I mean, it's been 14 years since a Chinese leader's been there, and then a Chinese leader has not been there since Kim Jong Un has been. Hu Jintao went to see his father. This bolsters his standing within his country and internationally, again, for Kim Jong Un, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely it does so. And we must remember that in 2017, ties, not just ties in 2017 were not good. I mean, Kim Jong Un was testing nuclear missiles at the time of the BRICS summit, which President Xi was hosting at that point of time. That was not good timing. And also, in the first couple of years of Kim Jong Un's tenure, he made it a point to distance himself from China so as to consolidate his power. So President Xi coming to Pyongyang symbolizes that period, that chapter is behind them, that relationship are on a qualitatively different level. And as I said, Kim himself has elevated himself and consolidated power, and so this is President Xi providing his stamp of approval to that.
We see Moon Jae-in trying to make overtures to try and get things going. Xi himself right now there. What's it going to take to actually get Donald Trump and Kim to sit down at a table again? And how, I mean, it seems like at some point in Singapore, it looked like, wow, maybe something could happen. Hanoi, not so much. Things right now kind of in disarray. What's it going to take?
It's in disarray. I think there's, again, slow momentum developing towards creating the modalities for Kim and Trump to meet sometime later in the year. It's still too premature in that regard. But one of the important things I think both Moon Jae-in and President Xi perhaps is getting across to Kim Jong Un is that this leader-to-leader summits are very important, but they're not sufficient. There needs to be engagement at the senior officials level between the North Koreans and the United States. And the US, at least Special Negotiator Steve Biegun, has shown that he's ready for that. And so hopefully that process will move. And it's important that the North Korea-South Korea relationship and the China-North Korea relationship are stable, because that provides that backstop as well as the platform for Kim to then engage the US.
What do you expect from the talks at the G20 between Xi and Trump? Any breakthrough on trade, do you think?
Oh, I actually, personally, I feel the trade issue it's gone off the rails, it'll get back on the rails. That doesn't mean the agreement will necessarily come soon thereafter, but I think I notice a certain degree of anxiety on Donald Trump's part, because Donald Trump does want a trade agreement. He has taken this to the cliff edge, and he's put the negotiations in a delicate point. And frankly, if it doesn't get worked out at this point of time, there's a real danger he might have to go into re-election with the trade relationship in a very bad state. So I've noticed a certain urgency on Donald Trump's part to get it moving, but there are gaps on implementation-related issues related to trade, and we'll have to see whether they can get it on.
This UN panel of experts came out with this report indicating the shutting of the DPRK out of legitimate trade is pushing it to act sort of as an outlaw out on the borders there. It seems to be that this maximum pressure, at some point it's going to start weakening, and there's going to be pressure. What about that strategy of the U.S.? I mean, how long can it maintain this where everybody's going to have buy-in?
The way I think the U.S. sees it is that it has North Korea in a corner. That doesn't happen often. They also have a leadership in North Korea, and which at least has stated its preference for denuclearization, although it has to walk the talk significantly. So if there's movement on that front, I can see the US being fairly eager to have limited sanctions removal and allow a little more breathing room for the DPRK. But at this point of time, without concrete actions, it's just a hard ask to do. And there are parties both in the US as well as in East Asia who are pushing Trump not to go easy on this front. So we need to see a little more progress, frankly, on this front.
Yeah, very interesting. Sourabh Gupta always is. Thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.